The air was crisp with the scent of autumn, the golden leaves swirling like tiny dancers in the breeze. The Carter family had planned this day at Maplewood Park for weeks. One last afternoon of sunshine before winter crept in. Jake, their 8-year-old autistic son, loved the park. The way the leaves crunched beneath his feet, the way the sunlight flickered between the branches, it was his world. A world made of patterns and rhythms only he truly understood. His parents, Emily and Mark, watched as he spun in circles on the wooden bridge, fascinated by the way the water below shimmered like a living mirror. In her arms, Emily cradled their newborn daughter Lily, just 3 months old and wrapped in a soft pink blanket. For a moment, just a moment, Mark turned to adjust the baby's hat, and Emily bent down to pick up a dropped pacifier. When they looked up, Jake was gone. A cold wave of panic crashed over them. "Jake!" Emily's voice wavered as she scanned the park. No answer. Mark's heart pounded. "Jake!" he called, louder this time. But they knew Jake wouldn't respond. He wasn't the kind of child who came when called. He lived in his own world, and right now, he was lost in it. Emily's breath hitched. He could be anywhere. The lake, the woods, the busy street beyond the park gates. Fear clamped around her chest like a vice. Nearby, a woman on a bench overheard the distress in their voices. "What does he look like?" she asked, already rising. "A blue jacket!" Emily choked out, rocking the baby against her shoulder. "And red sneakers." The woman didn't hesitate. "I'll help look." A jogger paused, concern creasing his brow. "I'll check the trails," he said before sprinting off. One by one, strangers stopped. Parents, teenagers, elderly couples walking their dogs. Within minutes, the entire park was searching for Jake. Meanwhile, deep in the woods, Jake wasn't afraid. He had seen something bright red leaf twirling in the air, its motion mesmerizing. He followed it, step after step, until the laughter and voices of the park faded. Here, in the quiet, was where he felt safe. The world wasn't too loud, too bright. It was just right. He sat by the roots of an old oak tree, his fingers tracing the lines of bark. The patterns calmed him. He hummed to himself, a song he had heard once, repeating the same melody over and over. Back at the park entrance, Emily fought back tears. "He must be so scared," she whispered. The woman from the bench put a hand on her shoulder. "Maybe he's not scared," she said gently. "Maybe he just needs to hear something familiar." That was it, something familiar. Emily remembered Jake's favorite song, the one she sang to him every night. It was the only thing that soothed him when the world became too much. She swallowed her fear and began to sing. Soft at first, her voice wavered, but then it grew stronger. Others in the park, those who had children of their own, those who simply wanted to help, joined in. The melody drifted through the trees, a song carried on the wind, reaching into the quiet places where a small boy sat alone. Jake's fingers stilled against the tree bark. He knew that song. His mom's voice. He stood up, tilting his head, listening. Step by step, he followed the music. Then, through the trees, he saw them. His mom, his dad, his baby sister. The strangers who had sung for him. And they saw him. Emily dropped to her knees, arms wide open, tears streaking her face. "Jakey!" Without a word, Jake ran into her arms, burying his face in her shoulder. He didn't like hugs, not always. But in this moment, he let her hold him tight. The park erupted into cheers. Strangers hugged each other, relief washing over them like sunlight through the trees. Mark ran a hand through his hair, his breath coming in shaky gasps. "Thank you," he said to everyone around them. "Thank you." The jogger who had searched the trails clapped Mark on the back. "He wasn't lost," he said with a smile. "He was just waiting to be found." That night, as Emily tucked Jake into bed, she whispered against his forehead, "I'll always find you, my love. Always." Jake didn't answer, but he didn't have to. He simply curled up beneath his blanket, humming the same song that had brought him home.